Michael, the next 3 points are always the most important 3 points to get, but you need your squad to stick together after this difficult time. How do you galvanise them into getting the winning mentality that they haven't got and being less passive than they were on Wednesday?
I think, look, that's the situation we find ourselves in. We've got enough experience in the coaching staff, and we've got enough experience in the squad to galvanise. The boys were in good mood today. It's a beautiful day here at the training ground, and they trained well. Given that obviously haven't played Wednesday, there's very little you can do, and the ones who didn't play trained longer. And look, we have to be ready to play. It's the message is the same. We're disappointed with obviously recent results. Ironically, when you look at the game on Wednesday, our physical data was higher than it has been in recent games. So it tends to, I was a little bit surprised at that as well, but our high-speed running was high as well. So it's not a lack of application, but I think, what we are doing is making games difficult for ourselves. And the mental side of the game has been, clearly has been difficult for us in recent weeks.
Millwall will be compact and they keep it tight, and they'll probably try and be direct and play over the top. I mean, they've done really well. I think they're unbeaten in 8 and they won 2-0 in midweek. So it's going to be a really tough battle.
Yeah, it'll be a tough game. They're a team that, consistent with their system. They do, get a lot of men behind the ball and they play forward quickly, and they've got, players that can run forward and hurt you, the likes of Jed Wallace, for example. So we know what to expect in terms of the game. We just have to, make sure that we don't turn the ball over, really. That was one of the things that we did too easily in the game on Wednesday, particularly after we'd scored. We had a period where, we turned the ball over 5 or 6 times. And when the opposition are just going to play forward direct, it means, your defence are on the back foot straight away. And, that's something that we have to make sure, obviously, we keep to a minimum tomorrow.
You said you got outrun on Wednesday. And is that a lack of confidence? It's certainly not a lack of effort, or is it something else?
Well, I only felt that we got outrun a little bit when we turned the ball over and they played the ball forward. And it's always easier to run forward than run back in a game. That's just human nature with footballers as well. And that's probably what I meant by that. But clearly, when I look at the data, I'm not privileged to see what Cardiff's data was in the game. But, we had a lot of attacks, phases of attack right throughout the game. The problem was when it broke down, we had to, retrieve the ball because the ball went into our final third and we had to defend it. And, where we've got to get better is that we, retain the ball for longer in the opposition half.
It'll be a tough game tomorrow. You've already said that. And that the fans don't have much patience at the best of the time. But like most fans, if they see the players putting in as much effort as they can, they'll get behind you, as they did in the very first season when Stoke were in danger of being relegated. But how important is a good start tomorrow?
I think a good start at home it's always important to start the game well at home. It's you have to play with intent and you have to get in the front foot. And, we'll pick a team tomorrow to do that. We pick a team that will go and attack. That's what we've consistently tried to do. Put creative players in the team. And, the onus and responsibility lies with us. The supporters, I understand their frustration, that no more frustration than there is in this building, to be honest, with the playing squad and the coaching staff. But we just have to deal with that. And, as I say, make sure that, we play with a real purpose and intent tomorrow, as we have done, I think, and tried to do in every game. But sometimes, unfortunately, some of our results maybe mask the fact that we have done that.
How are we injury-wise? Is Jagielka and anybody else fit?
Yeah, we're pretty good. All come back into contention, other than Philogene, Badass, Powell, and obviously Suter are the 3 that won't be available.
So would you consider putting Seamer on the bench or even sticking him in the squad now? Is he back to fitness?
Yeah, he's trained today. Yeah, I mean, he's been out a long time, Abdullah, and he's still, it's a difficult scenario when you come to a foreign country and you've not played and been basically injured for 6 months. So, he still looked a little bit like getting up to speed when I watched him in the 23s. I've been privileged to be able to watch the last 2 under-23 games, and he's had some good moments in them, but equally, he's still building up his minutes and that. But he is an option for us and certainly comes into consideration.
There's 9 games left, and you know more than anybody that you need a performance and, more importantly, a result. But you've got lots of talented youngsters coming through, and the likes of Tommy Simpkin, Joe Bursick, Taylor Howard-Bellis, and Jadine Philidine-Bates have just been selected for England younger teams. So that must augur well for the future. At least 2 of them are Stoke contracted players.
Yeah, particularly for the contracted players, you know, Bursick and young Tommy, you know, have been around England underage squads now for quite some time. I think it shows, you know, Taylor obviously being with England under 21s and Jayden selected for the under 20s, although I don't think he's going to be able to report because of the injury. It shows that they're high caliber young players, and, you know, it's a market that we've tried to exploit. I think, you know, sometimes you get positive results from the loan market, other times not. But for some of these young players, you know, the experience for them is to come out and deal with, you know, championship level football at a club where there is high expectation as well. And, you know, they've had that experience. Jayden's probably been a bit unlucky with the injury. You know, obviously came and did very well early on, and then unfortunately picked up the injury and has kind of been missing now for the last sort of 4 or 5 games. So hopefully after the international break, we'll see the best of him again. And I think overall, you know, Taylor made a mistake for the second goal on Wednesday night. But overall, I think, you know, you can see why he's a young player, and, you know, Man City regard him as highly as they do.
You've got a lot of youngsters. You obviously talk about the youngsters in the team and how their performances can vary. But when you've come in out of a bad run of matches, albeit several of them have been away, do you now need to look more to the characters and the leaders and the more experienced players, or are you going to have to go with a mixture and hope?
I think you always have to go with a mixture. You pick your best team, really. For me, you do have to look at the character of certain players and will they be able to deal with the situation. That always comes into, and, you know, it's a two-way thing. You know, as a young player, you have to display that, you know, the mental strength to be able to deal with the situation. You can't just be dependent on older players and experienced players to carry the team through in that situation. And the older players need that from the young players as well. You know, that's very important. So, you know, the team that we pick tomorrow will have some senior players in it, but equally, you know, we have a squad, I think, where, you know, I think 11 of our squad are possibly, you know, under 23. So it's a young squad. And that's something that, you know, over time those players will develop, and they'll develop through this period of play. You're never going to have a career where everything's rosy in the garden all the time. So, like, for these young players, they will benefit from that. And sometimes for the older players, it's difficult as well to deal with this. But, you know, the only thing you can do is make sure that you stick together as a team and a squad, and we've certainly done that.
I'm sure the irony won't be lost on you that in the opposite dugout tomorrow, there's a previous manager who had a lot of cash to spend, and you're sort of having to work on a shoestring budget using a different level of player that you can buy, going on free agents, loan players. It's tough for you, isn't it? Although you've done a lot of work behind the scenes. For example, the medical department's completely overhauled. Andy Cousins was saying to me pre-match that none of you feel you're far away from being a really good team, and that probably says it all.
Well, yeah, we do feel that. You know, it's difficult to say that when you're obviously having disappointing results, but we do certainly feel that. You know, we do have because of the nature of how we have to operate, because of the rules of financial fair play, we're not in a position like we were, you know, 3 years ago or 4 years ago, where we could try to buy the best players available in the championship or pay the highest wages. We're no longer able to do that. The rules dictate that, and as a consequence, you know, that limits the market of the player that we have to go for. And one of the things is when you have loan players and also players like we have at the minute, I think between the loans and players who are out of contract, we have as many as 13 players who their future is uncertain beyond this point at the club, and that's probably a little bit unsettling for them. And we have decisions to make on players who are out of contract. We also have decisions to make on the loan players. You know, would we bring them back? Are they the right types of players to bring back for next season as well? So all of that is part of what we have to deal with at this minute in time. And, you know, that's the job. I knew the job when I came into it. I knew that there wasn't going to be a huge amount of money to spend, that any money we did spend, we'd have to sort of generate it out of the squad, which we have done, whether that's through wages or through selling players. And, trying to reinvest some of that money back into the team. And, that will be the process, I would imagine, at this club for, regardless of who's the manager, for a considerable time, because, we are now having to operate very stringently within the rules of financial fair play. And we no longer obviously have the parachute payments from the Premier League.
Lastly from me, the psychology of recognising your own strengths is important as skill and fitness. Has the club psychologist been working overtime, or have you been working overtime looking the players in the eye and telling them that they are good enough? Because clearly they are.
Yeah, look, football is a game that, a lot of it is played between the ears, and like any athlete. But the players have to find that themselves. Of course, we look at and analyse the games and individually. Mark Burton is here as an individual coach that we brought in at the start of the season. He does a lot of work on an individual basis with the players, which is both technical and also from a psychological point of view. Club psychologist Joe is around the players all the time as well. So I don't think that's something that you can force upon players. I think that's something that they have to seek out, and some players need it. Some players want it more than others, but that it's there for them. There's a lot of support within this club from all the coaching staff. I think Dean, Andy, Rory, David Rouse, as I talked about, Mark Burton, they devote a lot of time to the players as well. I think the players seek that as well, and so we believe we're doing a lot of things right. Unfortunately, as I say, we haven't seen that just with our results in recent times.